everybody. Welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners, and I'm joined, as always, by my partner in podcasting, Emily Grace Deal. Emily Grace Deal, what are we talking about today?
Leadership involves sacrifice, but does our own health have to be sacrificed to be a successful leader?
Leadership does involve a lot of sacrifice, and this is actually a question I asked on LinkedIn the other day. Does our own health have to be sacrificed to be a successful leader? And interestingly, and kind of what I expected, almost every answer was, of course not. No, we don't need to do that. But then when you take and you look at the actions of most leaders, they will say the words no, but the actions, it is clear they are very fine sacrificing their health and often sacrificing their well-being and the well-being of their families. And we get locked into this idea that we have to sacrifice everything to be a leader. And I think you can be a sacrificial leader, but also put boundaries around your own health and your own well-being and saying, hey, long-term, I'm not doing that. That is not worth it to me.
Right.
So they always answer no, but then we really dig into the actions and say, okay, is this something that we actually believe and live out? And usually we don't. And I think a lot of this is ultimately it's easier to make that sacrifice than it is to learn new ways of doing things. Saying, I think the phrase, fine, I'll just get it done is easy. You know, when you've got, say, a team that's not living up to what they need to, it's easier to just jump in and do the work than it is to say, guys, I'm going to have to teach you how to do this work because also I need to rest. And so we're going to spend our weekend just doing the work and doing it for them and not helping them in any way actually whatsoever.
Right.
And we're sacrificing ourselves then.
This is such a silly example, but I keep thinking about it.
Yeah, my guess is it's not silly.
It is. Okay, but have you seen that thing where it's like, will you eat these 10 tortillas? And it's like, no. And then it's like, okay, will you eat this basket of chips? And it's like, of course, you know, and you can sit and eat an entire basket of chips. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
No, but now I just want chips.
Well, I feel like that's what it's like. Well, of course, we're not going to sacrifice ourselves. I'm not going to sit and eat 10 tortillas. But we will just sit and slowly eat that basket of chips because it's easier that way.
Will you work an extra 4 hours today? Will you work your weekend? Will you do these things? Well, yeah, I got to do those things, right? But you're right, it is. We need to stop eating the basket of chips.
Yes.
We're killing ourselves with this.
Also, lunch.
It is almost lunchtime. I'm very hungry. But we got to get through this
topic, but I kept thinking of that. It's like a good way of looking at it to where it's like, we're not going to like say, I'm not going to physically injure myself by not resting and not doing what I need to take care of myself. Clearly, the answer is no to that. But we do just slowly do it without thinking about it and without recognizing what's happening.
We do. And what it shows us is while we can say we don't believe that we should have to sacrifice our health, our subconscious, the operating system is operating with the idea and the story that a good leader sacrifices themselves.
Right.
And so ultimately, I think we have to ask the question, what is the cost if we continue to believe that story? One of the things we really help leaders do is to be able to write out a story and to really then understand what is the cost of this. So there's always a payoff, makes us feel superior, relieves us of responsibility. So if the story is leaders sacrifice themselves, leaders have to sacrifice themselves, the payoff there is pretty easy. Now we're relieved of responsibility of having to learn how to do it without sacrificing ourselves. We also feel superior. Look at me. I'm a leader. I am sacrificing. It's like this badge of honor, right?
Yes.
Makes us feel superior to others in a dark way. And we may not be consciously thinking that,
right?
But our subconscious is operating with that.
Right.
But then you get into the cost. What is the cost of sacrificing ourselves if we continue to believe that story? And it always starts small, right? It starts with, I'm tired. The cost is just fatigue, right? And then eventually it just keeps going down the scale, and then we're burned out. And then when we're burned out, they always identify burnout fast. I think that's because they know that's why I'm there, right? When we're talking about cost, they identify burnout quickly. And then I'll say, okay, what next? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, how are you when you are burned out? And like, oh, I'm cranky. I show up angry. I'm very short with people. I don't have grace. I don't have and then I always go, okay, how long can you be these things and still love your job? Oh, I'm unhappy. okay, how long can you be unhappy before all this affects your family? And eventually, I always tell them, eventually this is going to end and somebody dies.
Right.
The cost is someone will die.
Right. This is going to get dark quickly.
It does. It's just how many steps is it going to take to get there? The cost of believing that story or letting our subconscious operate with that story without doing anything about it is massive.
Yeah.
This is how we lose families. This is how we lose all the things that we really want to create in life. And I work with so many leaders who will actively say, I don't want to sacrifice myself. But getting there, it is such a difficult process, but it starts with unwinding this story.
Yeah.
And you have to replace it with something else. And ultimately, I think when we think about replacing the story of leaders have to sacrifice their health to something along the lines of, great leaders model how to lead in a healthy way. If that's the replacement story, now in order to be a great leader, I've got to model how to be healthy. That's a different thing. That's
right. Because no matter how much you tell your team, like, I don't want you to sacrifice either. Like, this,
they're going to do what we do, right?
Right. They're going to do exactly what you do.
Absolutely. That's a great point, because really when you're leading somebody, you're leading kids, and kids model what we do. Whatever we model, they're going to absolutely follow that and do that.
Right.
And so if we are going to sacrifice our health, our team is going to think that that's the expectation. That's a great point. And so ultimately we have to rewrite that story, because the story of leaders have to sacrifice their health, the cost is too great.
Right. Don't think that it ends with you. Don't think that you're the exception.
There is this, we always talk about as a leader, every action is like throwing a pebble in the water and the effects just go out like waves. Well, the effects can be both good and bad. And so if I'm taking action that is sacrificing my health, the waves going out are not helpful like we think they are. And you say, well, we're getting a lot of things done. Yeah, but your people are miserable around you, Is that success? And I think there's something we have to really identify in that is, are we going to call that success? We've talked several episodes about climbing mountains, right? If you get to the top of the mountain, but you're burned out and miserable and you've lost your family and nobody likes you at work, is that success?
Yeah,
even though
fun
you got
fact,
to the top?
all you got was the mountain. Like,
yes, on the top of the mountain.
Spoiler alert.
It's fine, but you're going to look around and go, there's other mountains I probably need to climb. Like, you're never going to be satisfied with that. So it's not worth sacrificing everything. And that doesn't mean that, I think we have to clarify, there are seasons of sacrifice, right? There are seasons where we say, hey, for this short season, this actually limited, I've put boundaries on it season, I'm going to work more. I'm going to do more. And when we put those, we intentionally do it. We put boundaries around it. We communicate it very clearly to everyone involved. I think that's okay.
Right.
It's when that is the norm.
Well, and I feel like we've done this before too, where it's like, okay, this is gonna, like, we're agreeing that this is it. Like, as a team, we say, okay, here it is. Here's the like framework of what this can look like for this season. And like, we agree that we're willing to make it happen for whatever the goal is.
Yes.
And then at the end of that, right. So then we agree that we're gonna go back to like some more healthy rhythms.
Absolutely. And I think that agreement kind of has to be in place. And so I think leaders, let's talk next steps. If you are finding yourself sacrificing your health, and if you are, you absolutely know, if you're listening to this, you're going to know if you're sacrificing your health. If you're doing that, there is probably an unconscious operating system in your subconscious that is based on the story that leaders have to sacrifice their health. And that story is not true. It might be true in some small occasions or ways or limited times. It's not true always. But if you're always operating with that as your way of making choices, you're going to continue to sacrifice your health. And so ultimately, you have to rewrite that story. If you don't want to pay the cost, you have to rewrite it. And you have to make sure that rewritten story, you're reminding yourself all the time. Great leaders model health. Great leaders model health. Great leaders model health. However you want to rewrite it. You sit there and you repeat that to yourself all the time. Let that guide your decisions. Let them be intentional. All right. If people want to send us topics, questions, anything they have that we can dive into.
Right. You can disagree with us. We would like to have the conversation.
Tell me you have to sacrifice your health. I would love to have that conversation with somebody. Where do they send that to?
To lab@forwardpartners.net.
Lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find us online, where we are constantly producing leadership content to help, where do they find that?
@forwardpartner.
@forwardpartner. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yep.
Thank you so much for hosting this.
Thank you.
John, Porchlight Productions Vineyard, thank you for producing. Other Emily, thanks for bringing the vibes. And thank y'all for watching. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time right here in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.